I don't know if you can relate to this feeling, but currently I am both incredibly motivated and want to get things done and have a bunch of projects that I want to work on and am very kind of in a go, go, go mindset, but then I'm also incredibly demotivated and I would just like to go back to bed and sleep. And my planner feels like it's in a slump and I don't really know how to proceed. So let's go figure that out. Hello team, today we are setting up for April in my bullet journal, and we don't often do a face-forward intro to the monthly setups, but today I just figured we would because I wanted to explain to you what we're trying to achieve. As said, I have that weird combination of feeling both motivated and incredibly not motivated, and I know that my bullet journal can help me resolve this if I set it up with intention. So that's kind of what we're trying to nut out today. We're trying to figure out a way to set up my bullet journal to organize all of the different projects that I want to be working on in a way that is manageable, in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming. It's very clearly laid out, so I know what's going on and what needs to be done, but I'm not bogging it all down with a bunch of unnecessary stuff or things that are just kind of adding to my load without necessarily having a function that is gonna serve a purpose. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's go have a look at March though. Whenever it comes to setting up for the next month, I always like to start by looking at the month we're currently in, just so I can kind of think about what worked well, what didn't work so well, what might need changing or tweaking in the month ahead. Doing this reflection up front means that I can be more intentional about what I do choose to put into the next month setup. So for March, we had the projects list, which is a staple I always enjoy. We had our cover page, and for our theme, we went with a quilting theme. So we had all of these kind of triangular quilting patterns done in a whole range of blues, which was very time consuming, but I do like the way it turned out. I know already that this calendar was too small for me. I very much prefer having at least 6 boxes across for each of my calendar boxes, so that is a change that we're going to make for April. And while I did like the Dutch door tabs for the monthly setup, I don't think I'm going to do it again in April just because I might want to do something a little different. I probably still will use a Dutch door, but not in this way. So we have the monthly log, then after this we have the actions list and the habit tracker. You can see on my habit tracker in particular, we don't have a lot filled in, and I've also got this grey horizontal line. That's because I was away for the first half of the month, and rather than trying to make myself fill in my habit tracker, I made the active choice to not fill it in. This style of habit tracker does typically work for me though, so I'll probably stick with it for April. And the actions list, although it doesn't look very used or very populated, again, this is partially because I was away for the first half of the month, so it's probably still going to get some use before the month is over. So we'll keep that one probably in a similar style. After this, we had my posting schedule, and I think I might not include this in the month ahead. I kind of want to possibly do this digitally. I think that might be a little bit easier, and I think that this stuff actually in particular, not the Instagram, but the ones for my community posts and Facebook group, Facebook page, those could actually just go on my monthly log. If we flip back to the monthly log, I've got a fair bit of space here that I could use for that kind of stuff. So rather than having it in its own separate schedule, I think I could combine those and makes better use of the monthly log. After this one, we just had a notes page, so it was a space for me to write down any kind of tasks or things that I was thinking about while I was away. Probably won't need that, especially because for April, I think I'm going to be going back to doing daily logs rather than weekly layouts, but we'll talk more about that in a bit. After this one, we had our review, and I'm going to have a monthly review, but what I think I also want to include is a quarterly review, or like a quarterly check-in, because the start of April is the start of quarter 2. So it'd be good to kind of have a bit of a deep dive into my goals and the progress that I've made, set more intentions for the quarter coming up, all of that kind of stuff. After this though, I had my weekly spreads, and I had set weeklies up for the first 2 weeks with the intention of using it as kind of like a memory keeping space for while I was away. And as you can see, that did not happen. But for the weeks that follow, I went to a more vertical style so that I could put in my task lists. Those ones I have been using. As of current, it's actually only the 21st, so still have some things to write down on here and some more days to fill in, but those ones are getting used. As said before though, I'm probably going to do daily logs rather than weekly logs in April, mainly because yesterday I was flicking through one of my old planners when I was using the B5 size notebook and was commenting on how much I enjoyed doing daily logging in here. So I think I'm going to do that again for April. As mentioned, we've got that kind of like want to work on a whole bunch of stuff stuff but need to record it in a simple way, and this was a really nice, simple way to record all of the things that I was doing. Plus it takes a lot less time to set up, which means more time to actually do the things that I'm writing down that I want to do. After this page though, we then have a full page sticker, which was given to us at Go Wild. I just like the fact that it was rainbow, so I just kept it all together and stuck the entire sheet down onto this spread. And then after that, we're into the place that we will be setting up for April. You can see I have sketched some things out because I always like to go in with pencil first so that I know that things are gonna fit, they're in the right place, all of that kind of stuff. But as I've kind of alluded to, I'm feeling a bit stressed at the moment. Lots to do, lots that I want to do, not a lot of motivation to do it. Honestly, it's kind of got me a little bit down. So for my April setup, I kind of wanted to par back a little bit, do less kind of doodly decoration, and more so utilize things like washi tape. So yes, we are going to do some doodling here, but outside of that, I'm also just going to use a collection of monochromatic, like black and white washi tapes, just to add in some extra decoration without a lot of effort on my part. Plus this means that if I want to decorate my daily logs, it's going to be a lot easier. Following with the monochromatic feel, we're going to be just using a bunch of black pens for today's setups. The ones that I'm actually using are all linked in the description box. Just going to go in first though and write out our title for my projects list. For each of the headers in the setup though, I'm just using a Papermate Flare pen. I wanted something that was a good quality of black and had a bit thicker of a line weight. Along with just the text on the header, I'm also going to put in a little doodle of an alien saucer, like flying saucer spaceship, because our theme for the month ahead is alien abductions, as voted on by my patron team. This one's fairly small, so I'm just going to use an 02 micron for this. After doing the line work of the spaceship, I then just use some dots and some small lines to add what is effectively detail. It's quite messy and I don't really have any rhyme or reason for this, more so just putting some darker areas on the outside edges, kind of just to add some dimension. I am going to try and make sure that I erase the pencil lines as we go, but also making sure to give everything good drying time because we don't want to smudge the ink. I like to have my projects list in two separate columns, so having my YouTube video section here, and then my patron tasks, and then space underneath this to record other stuff. To put in the headers for these ones, we're going to use a Tombow dual brush marker, so N95, which is a nice grey, goes with the whole monochromatic thing we're working with. And because one of the things that I want to do with this setup is make it so that everything is kind of like clean, crisp lines, I am going to make some washi boxes. So just using a washi tape that I don't really plan on using for anything else to mask the page, so that then when I put the pen down, the N95, I'm doing it in such a way that gives me these really nice crisp edges. So the headers for these sections are just going to be one box tall, or like half a centimeter tall. And once we've masked that off, we can put those colored sections in. Because I want two columns here, I'm going to have 6 centimeters for one, and then a 1 centimeter break, and 6 centimeters for the next. And I'm going to go over it twice just because I want it to be a little bit darker. But we don't want to go over too many times because we don't want to saturate the page with the color. The projects list is very much a staple for me because it's effectively like a snapshot or overview of the different things that I need to do for my work areas in particular. So YouTube and Patreon being kind of my main work areas, or what I consider to be my main work areas. So having that snapshot up front first thing in the month makes it very easy to find, for one thing, and for the YouTube videos in particular, I like to sequence these in terms of order of release. Because I currently release my videos on Thursdays and Saturdays, we have 9 videos going up next month. So I can just put some dots out with my Zig Clean colored dot marker, and those will act kind of like check boxes, so we can write down the title of the video. Once it's all done and uploaded, we can tick it off. For my patron tasks, I have quite a few more of those, so we'll just put in maybe 12 for now. I'm gonna go and actually look up what they are because I have to look them up every month to actually remember, because I also do have a set sequence that I like to write those in as well. That's looking pretty good though. We're gonna add in some headers for these boxes. So I'm gonna say YouTube for this one and Patreon for this one. Something that I included in my March projects list was an extra video section, and I think I'll do that for this one too. course, I haven't actually put anything into the extra video section for March, but I think in April we are going to have some extra ones come out. So having a space dedicated to writing those down so that they actually get done, probably a good idea. Because that ink is quite fresh, I'm not going to put the header down right away, because if I do, paper's still kind of wet from the pen and it means it'll feather, and I don't really want that to happen. So in the meantime, we're going to add a little bit of extra decoration down the bottom by using our washi tape. And in particular, I'm going to use a combination of this white grid, or like this kind of black grid on white, and this little clouds washi tape, which was from Archer and Olive. It was part of the collaboration with The Greater Good. So we're going to do kind of a layered thing in the corner here. Now I know I want this black one on top, but I kind of need to measure out how far across I want it to go. I think I want it about that far. So we can just cut the edge of that off. And then I'm going to want the white grid underneath it, but I'm just trying to measure out where I want both of those pieces to go. There-ish. And that one's going to come out a little bit further. We can peel up the black to lay it on top. But I also want to make sure that the edges of these are crisp, because it'll kind of match the other decorative elements we have a little bit better, rather than having it jagged and torn. But to cut those ones out, I'm just going to use my craft knife. And the nice part about this tape is that it's actually got a grid on it, so it's going to be a little bit easier to cut this on a nice diagonal. Go. Peel that part off. That looks pretty cute. And we're going to do the same at the other end for it. There we go. Plus having the dark section of black just gives us a little bit of contrast on the page as well. So the projects list is looking pretty good. We need to add in that title that just says extra videos. At this stage, I'm not too sure how many extra videos there's going to be, so we can just leave it like that. And now we can move on to the cover page. So while the projects list is very much a kind of function first type page, the cover page is really just for decorative purposes. I do like to include them though. I feel like it's kind of a nice, I don't know, like a bookend, I guess, to say, hey, the last month is over, this is where the new month starts. We'll go with the title first. Again, just using that Papermate Flare pen. And then we can get on to putting in the decoration. This part I am just going to time lapse. I did pencil it all in first, and this design was based on a tattoo that I found on Pinterest. A link to the original plus any of my other inspiration pictures can be found in the description box below. For this section though, I just chucked on some music and worked my way over my pencil sketches. This one and another design we'll have later in the setup are the only two kind of doodle heavy sections that I have in the entire setup, and they could easily be replaced with more washi tape art or something like that, but I didn't really have any alien abduction specific washi tape, and because that's the theme for the month, I did need to put in something related to it. I also just wanted something that was going to look quite clean and simple, even though drawing it in isn't necessarily super simple, effectively so it doesn't distract from my plans. As we already talked about, I'm a bit of a stress mess, I have a lot going on and a lot that I want to do. So I didn't want to distract from the actual kind of information heavy or productivity kind of sections in my setup by having a whole bunch of doodle work. Not to say that it necessarily would, and I know that people can do a lot of productive things with their journal even if it is decorative, but for this month, and for me in particular, what I really needed was to strip it back, just go to a very basic color palette, only have a couple of sections of decoration, and have other features and layouts that were very much just focused on getting stuff done. Now as the drawing's done though, or at least done to the extent that I am happy with, we are going to cut out a Dutch door. And this is going to be a very small Dutch door. We're effectively just cutting away this triangular piece and that one as well, making sure to go around our little flying saucer. I might go and neaten that up a little bit. That looks a little bit strange. It's not quite as rounded as I would like it to be. Go. And that's kind of the nice part about working with the black and also doing like all the stippling and the little line shading and stuff, is that you can just extend a line out or make it a little bit thicker and it doesn't look too strange. It doesn't look unintentional, if that kind of makes sense. I have already sketched out lightly in pencil where I want to cut away the page, so we really just need to cut along those lines. I could cut like super close to the design, but I wanted to leave a little bit of white space. Thought that would look kind of cute. These little offcuts you can keep for things like fixing mistakes and that kind of stuff. I have so many of those though that I'm probably just going to recycle this paper. This one we need to be a little bit more careful because we have the saucer shape. We want to try and make it look fairly even. I'm going to turn the notebook so that I don't have to cut from weird angles because otherwise I'll end up stuffing it up. No, I don't want to do that. Trying to figure out the best direction to hold the notebook so that I can cut this part out. I may actually use a craft knife for this. And if we're using the craft knife, we also want to protect the page underneath it, so we've got a cutting mat as well. And we can erase the pencil line that's left over because, as mentioned, I penciled in where I wanted to cut the Dutch door out, but I haven't necessarily cut perfectly along that pencil line. The cover page is essentially done now, but something that I like to do to make the Dutch door, or like a decorative Dutch door like this, stand out is actually put something on the other side that gives us a little bit of contrast. So rather than this page laying down on another piece of white paper, I'm going to stick something behind here, and I think that something is going to be some washi tape. I think possibly the washi tape I might want to use will either be the white grid, or possibly I could do a check, that would be kind of cool, or just a solid black. The nice part about the solid black though is that I don't have to fiddle around with lining stuff up, but then we also have that kind of solid black piece up here, so maybe we'll go for a pattern. Might need some more thought. I think for the sake of simplicity we're going to go with black, but I think rather than using the washi tape, because it is a larger area, we might use dot grid notepad paper instead. This one's actually just an offcut from a Neapolitan journal rather than a Neapolitan notepad, and I don't need the full page because I don't want this page to be black out. I just need the edge. And we can see that I need up to about here, or at least like the next column of dots after that. Mark in, and I need it up to at least there. We'll probably cut along this part and then stick that down. You could also do something like a ripped edge along here, make it, you know, a little bit more decorative in that way, but because everything else in this setup is working on really straight, clean lines, I figured it would make more sense to have it straight along here too. And to stick that in, we'll just use some double-sided tape. This one's a nice thick double-sided tape as well. And put the tape on the back and stick it in. Nice and easy. And make sure we're sticking it in nice and straight, so I'm just going to turn the journal so that I can line up the edge nice and easily. So when I stick it down, it's not skew-if cattywampus. There we go, that looks pretty good. So we've got good contrast on that edge of the page, and we can flip it over. We've got a nice, clean, crisp line. Because the Dutch door is cut out of this cover page, it means that using this spread as the calendar would be a little bit odd. I'd have to shape it a little bit differently so that then you wouldn't see the calendar on the other side of the Dutch door. Yeah. So rather than doing that, we're going to put my actions list and my habit tracker in here instead. So a little bit out of order compared to what I usually like to do, but at least they're still together, and I don't have to worry about trying to make a monthly calendar that is oddly shaped or oddly sized. Again, for my headers, I'm just using the Papermate Flair pen, and we're also putting in a couple of those little flying saucers to bring our theme onto this page. And we need to put some numbers in for the days of the month. So effectively, I have icons along the top to represent what my habits are, and then numbers and initials for each of the days of the month down the side. At this stage, I don't know what my habits for the month of April are going to be, but I do just put in the bar at the top for where those icons to represent the habits are going to go. And I also highlighted every Saturday and Sunday in the column dedicated to the initials for each day of the week. At the bottom, I also put in a key just so that I could note what I'm using to represent completed or incomplete habits. Just like we had for my actions list in March, we're going to have a section for one-off and monthly actions, weekly actions, and daily actions, and then those daily actions actually get tracked on the habit tracker. I'm not sure how many of each I'm gonna have at this stage, so I will put in the top bar to put in the one-off or monthly actions, but I'm not gonna section out where I have the weekly or the daily ones. That'll happen once I do my monthly reset process and actually kind of select my goals for the month ahead and all of that kind of stuff. I do still want everything on this left-hand side to be in line with itself, so like aligned left, not aligned to the Dutch door, like kind of diamond section we have. So I'm gonna color this in from here. Oh my god, I'm not doing a very good job of pulling up my tape today. Like, I think this tape is actually a little bit too sticky for doing this masking trick with. We're gonna need to go fix some stuff up here. So we've got a section here and we've got a section here that the paper's been pulled up a little bit. This also happened over here with the blackout paper, so might need to go and fix those up. This one is going to be fixed by just coloring it in, and the color will be slightly different because we're working on the kind of uncoated or like underside of the paper now, but it's not really different enough to truly bother me. This entire edge here, I feel like I might want to do something with, but I'm not too sure. Possibly use this washi tape to mask it off a little bit. That might be cute. And then I can just trim back the edges of the tape. You just have to be careful about lining it up so that then there's no gap and so it's not like super obvious. I could technically have just colored it in with a black marker, but this is a lot quicker in terms of the kind of coloring aspect. And for that last little bit there, rather than pulling off a new piece of tape, I think I can probably just use an offcut once I pull this up. There we go, so that one now has black on the back as well, which just kind of, I think makes it look a little bit cleaner rather than kind of having this weird white space right next to the space that I'm supposed to be writing in. But the actions list is ready to be populated, the habits section is done also. I think I'm just gonna leave that little piece of black. I might go in with a little bit of glue and stick down that kind of curled up edge, but for now it's okay. And then we're on to the monthly log. Now, as said, I wanted to go back to a monthly log that had the kind of 6 spaces across, or 3 centimeters for each of these boxes. And I think rather than drawing out a full grid, I'm gonna make use of that washi trick again, being a little bit more careful this time, and putting in just effectively like header rows for each of the different rows on the calendar. We're going to do this carefully because we don't want to pull up more paper. It's not like the end of the world, it's not the worst thing ever, but it is still a little bit annoying. We'd like it to look nice. I'm much more likely to use my journal if it looks nice, so always do try to make it look visually appealing, or at least visually appealing to my kind of level of satisfaction, if that makes sense. And we'll need some initials for the calendar, so we'll write those in as well. You can probably tell that I'm using similar style of lettering for like all of the headers and for these little initials as well. A simple, I don't know how to describe it. I wanted something that kind of tied in with the whole alien abduction kind of aesthetic without being too hardcore. I wanted lettering that was fairly simple so that then if I want to do it on my dailies, or like recreate it in later spreads, I don't have to try too hard, effectively. So most of the letters really just look like regular letter forms, like the S, the F, the T, and then the W and the M are a little bit fancier. And you will have seen before on like the A for April and the P and the R and stuff, like those ones are a little bit decorative, but nothing too hardcore. In these grey header bars though, we'll put in the numbers for each of the days of the month, making sure that they line up with effectively like the left hand side of what would be the box if I ruled them out, but I'm not going to rule them out. just erasing some lines, and then after that we'll be able to put in that side panel of decoration. So this is going to be the last kind of major decorative element, like big drawn out decorative element that we do. Outside of that, it's just going to be washi tape, and then, you know, the lettering that we've been using, which is a little bit decorative, nothing too fancy. We'll probably also put some washi tape up the top here to just fill some space, but first we're going to go in and do our doodling. While the decoration that we had on the cover page was very much a recreation of a tattoo design, this one was more about bringing elements from a variety of different pictures together and kind of making something that's a little bit more original. I really love geometric designs like this. I am very drawn to that type of aesthetic, and I have actually previously done another monthly setup that utilized them. That one's also linked in the description box below, along with all of the reference images that I used. Unlike me, I actually made better choices regarding which pens I was using in which sections. So for areas that I was doing a lot of black colored in sections, I actually used a pen that is better designed for that, rather than my microns, which sometimes, I don't know, I'm using the pen to do the stippling in the littler areas, and then I'm like, what, too lazy to change to a pen that makes more sense to use? I mean, that's very much akin to how I am in other areas of my life too, so it's like not really a surprise, but I was pleased. It shows some growth. I am using pens that are better suited to the design work I am trying to do. Hopefully I can maintain that moving forward. In terms of timing, today's setup was a little under 3 hours of filming, so not necessarily 3 hours to do the setup because, you know, we're talking through things, we're explaining why I'm doing certain things the way I am, but this also doesn't include sketching in time and some of the idea generation time, so I guess we could probably say about 3 hours is right. As we've talked about previously though, I like to take my time when I'm filling in my journal. It's kind of like a self-care activity for me, so doing the decorative elements and thinking through the layout and all of that kind of thing, trying to be intentional with my planner, both in terms of the form and the function. That's all just part of the process. This decorative element in particular took about half an hour to go over with the black pen, and probably a similar amount of time to sketch in. Now as my hand is well and truly sore though, the decorative panel is done, and we can think about putting that washi tape in the top here. And we're effectively just going to do the same thing that we did here with the black with the little clouds and then the white grid, because I kind of like that combination. The nice part about the black hanging off the edge of the page here is that I only have to do the diagonal edge on it once, because the diagonal edge on the black is a bit more difficult than on the grid, because the grid I can kind of use the grid to line up the diagonal so that it all kind of looks like it's parallel, which is nice. This one we're not going to turn into a Dutch door, we're just going to leave it as it is, and flipping on over, we can get into what's going to be my quarterly check-in. Now as said, because April is the start of a new quarter, I want to do a bit of a goals refresh, kind of re-brainstorm my goals, see what I want to work on for the quarter ahead, and also just kind of have a space to note down the progress that I did make in the quarter gone. So, header in first. You can see on this spread I already put some washi tape down the edges of each of the pages, just to add a little bit of visual interest. As mentioned, we're not doing a lot of doodling from here on out. Any decorative elements are just going to be the washi tape or the headers, that kind of stuff. On this spread though, we have two main sections. So we have the kind of looking back, so what goals did I work on, what's the status of the goals, doing a level 10 life check-in, and then a milestone kind of space. And on this side, it's about looking ahead. So brainstorming for what I might want my quarter 2 goals to be, and then from that brainstorm, selecting what they are, and also outlining why I want to work on them. We're not going to populate this layout, but we are going to set up the headers, so bringing back the washi tape. If I were following my trend from the rest of this year so far regarding my goals, I would actually put my quarterly check-in in my brainstorming book, because that's where I've been doing the majority of my goal setting. But I've been finding it, I don't know, maybe like a little bit irritating having to go back to that notebook to pull out my goal action steps and all of that. So I thought that having it in my everyday bullet journal would probably be a good idea. As said, this quarterly check-in spread is really just to check in and think about what I might want my goals to be for the quarter coming up. And along with this, we're also going to need some action plans. So the pages that follow, which also already have washi tape, are where I'm going to put those action plans. So I'm kind of planning that there's going to be 2 action plans on this one. So one goal here, because they're both goals that I'm continuing working on. And then this one is going to be an action plan for a larger goal, and then this one will also be an action plan for a larger goal. But I'm not going to fill those in right now. They're just kind of set up, ready, waiting, so that then I can do them either at the start of April or just before April, effectively whenever I decide to properly do my quarterly check-in. Doing my quarterly check-in and quarterly goal setting is going to be a patron exclusive video, so if you're a patron, you have that to look forward to. And if you wanted to see that process, I do have a link to my Patreon in the description box. After the quarterly check-in though, and each of the action plan pages, I'm then going to be putting in my monthly review section. So if we flip back to have a look at a monthly review, we've got a bunch of different sections on here. So wins from the month, challenges and improvements. So challenges from the month that we're in and improvements that I can make in the subsequent month. We have a memory section, finances, reviewing my planner and what did or didn't work in my bullet journal, the goals that I worked on, looking forward to, nervous about, and a notes section. For an example of one that's actually filled in, if we flip back to February's one, because notably I haven't filled anything in here. Effectively I try and keep the general layout the same because it works quite well for me. And not all of the sections get filled in completely, there's a little bit of blank space, but it's just a nice way to recap the month. I don't know at this stage though how many of those action plans I'm actually gonna need. So I'm not gonna set that one up now. I'm gonna have to do my quarterly check-in, do my goal setting for quarter 2, sketch out or like map out where each of the action plans are going to be at the very least, and then put it in. And then after that, we'll be getting into the daily logs. Having a look at what we did set up though, we have the projects list, which is that nice kind of snapshot overview of the different things I need to do for my work in particular. We have the cover page, which is just decorative, it's just a nice little element to kind of bookend the months. After this we have the actions list and the habit tracker. So this action list in particular is less of an action plan and more of just pulling out the steps that are going to be on those action plans, specifying which ones in particular I want to work on in the month of April. The habit tracker is going to be very much related to my goals as well, so daily action steps that I'm taking to reach my goals, whether that be surrounding like self-care, mental health, content creating, whatever the goals are. Those daily actions go on here, and I can check them off by saying done with a grey dot, or not done or incomplete with a black dot. We have that nice black panel with that extra piece of doc red paper that I had, and then we have the monthly log. The monthly log is open, so not a lot of line work, which means I just need to be sure that I don't accidentally write events too far over, but should be fine. On this one, not only am I summarizing events and appointments and that kind of thing, I'm also going to be putting in my posting schedule or kind of like content creating releases and that kind of thing outside of Instagram, because Instagram I try and post like 3 times a day, and that's just going to get very crowded if I try and put it on here as well. So I'm mainly looking at things like my YouTube schedule, my Patreon releases, social events, all that kind of thing. Another little bit of decoration, and then after this we've got our check-in like we've talked about, and those spaces to put in the action pages. A little bit different compared to some of our previous setups from previous months this year, but if you're still looking for more inspiration for April, I do have a full playlist of all of my April setups. That one is found at the top here, or if you were looking for monthly setups in general, the playlist at the bottom is where it's at. Click or tap on either of those and I'll see you over there.